Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, your boy is back. Your boy is back. I'm back from vacation, week 1 and 2 in the books of college football. And boy, is there a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of hilarious things once again happened. A lot of teams got exposed. A lot of teams have shown that, oh, maybe they should be taken as serious contenders. And there are some teams who haven't really shown anything. Ohio State, because they haven't played anybody. Anywho, we're going to get in to week 1 and week 2. We're going to kind of combine it here because I was gone on vacation. I have some games and some teams I want to specifically talk about. And I'll probably also do some reviewing of week 1 and week 2 on Friday's episode as well, because there's so many storylines to talk about. But first, I want to get in to the storylines of teams who got exposed while I was gone. We're about to come on to week 3. And you're panicking. You're panicking. So let's get into those teams. First off, I just want to get this team out of the way because at this point, they're irrelevant. On a Monday night game for week 1, we had Florida State once again embarrass themselves. And on one hand, it stinks for me because I predicted them to win the ACC. But on the other hand, it's fantastic because I told you last week, even though I picked Florida State, what did I tell you? I told you that they showed up against Georgia in the bowl game and they quit. They showed up against Georgia Tech and they quit. Silly me for thinking that, oh, maybe they'll bounce back. Oh, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. You know what they did? They decided, hey, we're going to show up home opener against Boston College and look even worse. That's what they decided to do. They lost 28-13 to a Boston College team who has a new head coach in Bill O'Brien. And not only did they lose, they got embarrassed. It wasn't close. Boston College, you felt like Boston College was going to win the entire time. And quite frankly, what did it look like? It looked like what I've been talking about with this Florida State team. It looked like they quit. Honestly, it looked like they quit before the game even started. DJ Ukulele, as I call him, 21 for 42, 272 yards passing, a touchdown, and an interception. He had a QBR of 31. The guy is a joke. I'm watching him miss wide open passes, whether it's in the end zone, whether it's not in the end zone. It doesn't matter how far the pass is, he misses. But he's not the only issue. He's not the only issue. You want to talk about running the ball? Because Florida State brought in Roydell Williams from Alabama, who was supposed to invigorate this running back room, and he had 3 carries for 10 yards. And why? Why is DJ, who sucks, throwing the ball 42 times while Roydell Williams and Cam Davis, their 2 main running backs, combine for 6 carries? Because they were down from jump. From jump. And it just continued and it just snowballed and they got steamrolled. Why? Look at Boston College. See, Boston College is a team that knows who they are. Thomas Castellanos is not the best thrower of the football. So guess what? He only threw the ball 16 times. He threw for 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, a QBR of 88. And guess what they also did? They ran the ball down Florida State's throat. Thomas Castellanos ran the ball 14 times for 73 yards, averaged over 5 yards a carry. Trayshawn Ward carried the ball 12 times for 77 yards. That's over 6 yards a carry. And then Kai Robichaux, or Robichaux, however you say his last name, 19 carries for 85 yards, 4.5 yards a carry. And Kai and Thomas both had a rushing touchdown. So you can't stop the run. You can't run the ball. DJ Ukulele sucks, especially when you have him throw it 42 times. What are we doing? And look, I don't mind it. I've never liked Florida State. But what are we doing? You know, I saw someone tweet out that Mike Norvell without Jordan Travis is Billy Napier. And I'm just wondering, is he wrong? Is that person wrong? Because look, we'll get to Florida and their game against Miami, if you can call it a game. But man, at least they showed some fight against Miami early on. Florida State has shown zero fight, except for maybe the first drive against Georgia Tech. They have been terrible. And the game plan makes no sense. I'm confused as far as what this team even is. They can't stop the run and they can't run the ball. Then what is DJ U's just gonna? You thought coming into the season he was just gonna win you games throwing the ball? Like, what are we doing? He didn't do that at Clemson. He didn't do that at Oregon State. So, yes, I'm annoyed that my ACC champion pick is now making me look stupid, but at least I can feel good about the fact that I said this team was a bunch of quitters, and I thought that they would rebound. I really did. I don't mind that they aren't rebounding because in a way they deserve this. Because when you're more focused on what happened about the end of last season than you are about the upcoming season, this is what happens to you. You get embarrassed 2 weeks in a row. And guess what? You're about to go face Memphis, who's a very good group of 5 team. Oh no. If Mike Norvell loses to Memphis, I'm not going to lie to you. If I was the Florida State athletic director, I don't care that you went undefeated last year. If you lose to Georgia Tech, get embarrassed by Boston College, and lose to Memphis, I might fire you before you leave the stadium. And that's probably being overdramatic, but I said it already, so. Because that would be terrible. Coming off a bye, just to add insult to injury. But let's stop talking about this garbage team. They aren't worth any more talking about. But you know what? Let's talk about another team that I'm sure is also going to make me get heated and talk loudly and possibly yell. But this time, I'm going to like it. Well, I like it with Florida State because they annoyed me at the end of last season with all their whining and complaining. This team, though, really deserves it. So, you know how I said it was funny? How Georgia Tech beat Florida State and that it was justice? You know what's even funnier? When you're a team who was on the road in week 1, hostile environment, and you pick up a big win. You pick up a big win, and everyone starts talking about, they're in the playoff for sure. There's no way they don't get in. Oh, this team look at their defense. So good. But then you know what happens? Then you come home and you face a group of 5 team in Northern Illinois. And do you know what happens? You lose on a game-winning field goal, 16-14. I'm sure everyone knows who I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have once again, embarrassed themselves on a national stage. And I honestly was watching. Actually, I didn't watch this game because I was like, why would I watch Northern Illinois versus Notre Dame? And I kept getting the updates on my phone like, oh, this game's close. This game's close. Going into the fourth quarter, this game's still close. And I'm like, Notre Dame will pull away and they'll win. But they didn't. And why didn't they? Because once again, and this is very similar to actually what happened with Florida State. Not exactly the same, but a little bit similar as far as the quarterback situation. Now, Notre Dame has a better quarterback. Riley Leonard's not as bad as DJU. But why is Riley Leonard throwing the ball 32 times? 32 times? And he threw for 163 yards. He had a QBR of 25. No touchdowns, 2 picks. Why are these teams not understanding that when your QB is a better runner than he is passer, maybe we shouldn't be throwing the ball more than 30 times, more than 40 times? Ethan Hampton, the quarterback from Northern Illinois, only threw 19 times, and he still threw for more yards than Riley Leonard. Jeremiah Love, 11 carries for 79 yards, a 7.2 average yards per carry. Why is he not getting the ball way more than 11 times? And he had a touchdown. Riley Leonard carried the ball for 11. Riley Leonard carried the ball as many times as Jeremiah Love. And I keep hearing from Notre Dame fans about how, they have weapons on the outside. Their receivers, they're better than people think they are. Are they? Is it that the receivers aren't getting open, or is it Riley Leonard sucks? Which is it? Bo Collins, only 5 catches for 45 yards. Jaden Greathouse, 5 catches for 41 yards. Chris Mitchell, 3 catches for 32 yards. I mean, what am I missing? The defense played good, but the offense might as well not have been out there. The offense was garbage. And I knew Notre Dame was being overrated after the Texas A&M win. I picked Texas A&M to win, but what I saw from Texas A&M in that game against Notre Dame was garbage. Texas A&M, Connor Wegman looked like hot trash against Notre Dame. I was not impressed with Texas A&M in the slightest. And so the fact that Notre Dame beat them didn't impress me that much. But never in my wildest dreams or fantasies did I think they were going to then go at home and lose to Northern Illinois. But I'm glad it happened because I'm glad that this joke of a team every single year, overrated, I don't even have to worry about them anymore. I don't have to continue talking about them with the stupid playoff because I don't want to talk about them in the playoff because they don't deserve it. And I don't care if they win the rest of their games. This loss should immediately eliminate them because they don't play a conference championship game and their schedule is soft like Charmin. So please, spare me with Notre Dame sneaking in an 11 seed and getting blown out by whoever they play. Spare me. I just saw who I'm talking about next. And this one's going to get me riled up as well. But again, this one I will very much enjoy. I didn't predict Notre Dame to be in the playoff because I figured they'd do something like this. I just didn't think it would happen in Northern Illinois. But another team who I didn't predict to make the playoff got absolutely destroyed, annihilated, ran over multiple times, and then stomped on. And they deserve every bit of it. Why? Because they're dirty little cheaters. You know who I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, the Michigan Wolverines got absolutely exposed by Texas. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say a lot of things about this game. I'm going to tell you what the reality is. Okay? Texas is a good team. But don't get it confused. This game did not tell me that Texas is a contender to win the Natty. It didn't. I don't think they're a contender. I didn't think it before the game. I don't think it now. And I'll tell you why. Because I knew from jump this Michigan team, and I said it in one of my earlier episodes, this Michigan team is not good. It's not. I don't care that it was on the road. This team blows. And why? Well, first off, you have Donovan Edwards, who was on front and center of College Football 25, the video game, and yet he has not had a significant game yet. And he didn't this game. 8 carries for 41 yards. That doesn't sound like cover of a video game to me. Davis Warren, their quarterback, 22 for 33, 204 yards passing, a QBR of 47, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I don't even think Davis Warren was horrendous. He wasn't good, but I don't think he was the biggest issue. You can't run the ball, and that doesn't help your walk-on first-time starter quarterback. You know what also doesn't help? The fact that your defense got absolutely ran over. Your defense might as well not have been out there because Quinn Ewers was dicing them to pieces. It's almost like it's harder to play defense when you don't know the plays the offense is running. That's weird. Weird how that happens. Weird how your defensive line, who's supposed to be so good, was null and void. Null and void. Weird how your corners were useless the entire game. Weird how that happens when they don't know the play. Quinn Ewers was 24 for 36, 246 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and an 89 QBR. Isaiah Bond wasn't even their leading receiver. He had 3 catches for 51 yards, but you had Gunnar Helm, 7 catches, almost 100 yards, a touchdown. Matthew Golden, 6 catches, 41 yards, a touchdown. Jaden Blue, who was the first Blue to be in the end zone that day, because it surely wasn't Michigan. But he had 6 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. Michigan looked awful, and I knew they were going to look awful. I had no doubt Texas was winning this game. No doubt. And you have the Michigan fanboys, especially on the networks. Desmond Howard, I'm looking at you. Desmond Howard, if a question involves Michigan, he's picking them. I mean, that's how it happens every single time. How he's allowed on ESPN, he's one of the most biased individuals they have. It's beyond me. It's beyond me. He never picks against Michigan. He always picks any Michigan player he can. I mean, it's insane. It is insane. But they got absolutely exposed because they can't run the ball, and their defense was null and void the entire game. And I think Texas is good. Do I think they are a national championship contender? No, I don't. And I'm going to continue to stand on that. Because I'm not in the business of pretending like there's just a ton of teams that can be national title contenders. There's not. There's a few. Penn State's not a national title contender. You saw that. They almost lost to Bowling Green. So check them off. Oregon, am I supposed to believe Oregon's a national title contender? They've struggled 2 weeks in a row against Idaho and Boise State. It'll be very interesting to see how they play against Oregon State this weekend. I'll be picking that game later. People think Tennessee all of a sudden is a national title contender. Why? Because they beat NC State. Are you kidding me? NC State is not that good. Since when did people have this idea that Grayson McCall was like a top 5 quarterback and was just going to revive NC State to greatness? Like, they were my dark horse and they were my surprise team for the ACC. not for the playoff. They weren't in my playoff, as you could tell, because they're not good compared nationally. They're good for ACC, which, I mean, the ACC has had a rough start, but which, ironically, is where we're going to next. Because Virginia Tech, in week 1, they managed to do something that SEC teams don't do. They lost to Vanderbilt. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vanderbilt Commodores are 2-0. 2-0. And their first win was against a Virginia Tech team who I predicted to be in the ACC championship game. And I'll say this, if there's any conference that I am perfectly fine and willing to get completely wrong, it is the ACC, because that is just a trash conference and those teams make no sense. So I'm perfectly fine. I'll take that. Kyron Drones was 22 for 33. 322 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and a pick with a 59 QBR. Diego Pavia, on the other side, 12 for 16, 190 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 85 QBR. You know what I'm realizing? The teams that won, they understood who they were. Notre Dame seemingly forgot. Florida State has no clue. Michigan is just not good. And Vanderbilt knows who they are. They're not a passing team. Diego Pavia, he's not a passer. He's not an elite passer. Because Pavia had 26 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown. Cedric Alexander, their running back, 17 carries, 69 yards, a touchdown. Now, he did throw 2 touchdowns, one to Cedric Alexander, the running back, and another to Quincy Skinner Jr., who had 4 receptions for 72 yards. Vanderbilt knows who they are. And look, I like Kyron Drones. But have you noticed that all the teams that are not able to establish the run have lost? Bayshul Tootin, I think is this guy's name, their running back, 9 carries for 34 yards. Kyron Drones was the leading rusher, 16 carries. But out of those 16 carries, you know how many yards he had? 19. The receivers were fine. I mean, Ali Jennings, 2 catches for 91 yards is great. Stephen Gosnell, 3 catches, 72 yards. That's great. Jalen Lane, 4 catches, 62 yards. That's fine. Benji Gosnell. Are these guys brothers, Stefan and Benji? Benji Gosnell, 4 catches, 61 yards. You just cannot, when you have all this hype around you, you cannot go into Nashville and lose to Vanderbilt. You cannot let stuff like that happen. That is the type of stuff that gets you fired. And Virginia Tech fans are already calling for their head coach's job. I would too after a loss to Vanderbilt. Trust me. But I'm happy for Vanderbilt. Maybe they can get 6 wins. I have no idea. But I'm rooting for them. I mean, shoot, do they look better than Kentucky? They might. They might. To a game that I was kind of just talking about, Tennessee versus NC State. Tennessee has had 2 really impressive weeks. One of those was against a nobody. This other one is against an overrated team in NC State, nationally overrated team in NC State. Grayson McCall, 15 for 22, barely over 100 yards passing. No touchdowns and an interception. I mean, people act like Nico is out here lighting the world on fire. I mean, he's doing fine. I mean, he was 16 for 23. That's good. 211 yards passing. That's solid. He had 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 picks. I mean, that's not lighting the world on fire to me. That's not Heisman contending. You know, that's fine, but it's good enough. It's better than Joe Milton, I can tell you that. But what is special is Dylan Sampson. Once again, the team that established the run won. 20 carries, 132 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's how you establish the run. Nico had 8 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. That's good. Deshaun Bishop, 10 carries, 42 yards. They established the run. I know that this is football's a passing game these days. But yet I'm looking, and all the teams that established the run ended up winning because establishing the run helps the pass. And it demoralizes teams when you can just run the ball down their throat over and over, and they can't stop it. Is Tennessee a playoff contender? Absolutely. Is Tennessee a national title contender? No. Stop kidding yourself. Stop it. We do this every year. Stop. Just stop. Just don't. Another one that I cannot wait to talk about this game. I can't wait. Right after it happened, I was so giddy with excitement because once again, we have our yearly Colorado gets exposed game. And this one was plain as day obvious. Plain as day obvious. But what makes it better is the stuff that's happening afterwards. You have Shadur in the post-game presser talking about how, well, because I think a reporter asked him about like Dylan Raiola being a freshman and he outperformed Shadur. And you know what Shadur's response was? Typical Shadur. Well, how many times did Dylan Raiola get touched? Brother. The guy needs a PR team, a PR expert to help him. That's not how you respond. That, you know what that does when you're in the NFL? That just makes your offensive line angry at you. That's what that does. Not to mention the fact you left 2 minutes before the game was even over. Where are you going, Shadur? You don't want to take the heat? You don't want to take the heat? What, you want to go cry because every time a team destroys you, they do your stupid little watch celebration? Well, maybe you never should have done that in the first place, thinking you were some good. Let's look at the stats. Shadur was 23 for 38, 244 yards passing, which is good. But he had a touchdown, only one touchdown, and he had an interception and a QBR of 24. And look, Dylan Raiola didn't light the world on fire to me. He was 23 for 30, which is good. 185 yards passing is fine. One touchdown, no picks, only a 54 QBR. He wasn't lighting the world on fire. The thing that's so funny about this is this game was kind of winnable for Colorado, and they still got blown out. I mean, that's hard to do. That is hard to do. And I hope, oh my gosh, I hope they lose to Colorado State this weekend. I can't tell you how much I want that. Because I'm sick and tired of all the talking with no results. I'm sick and tired of it. Okay? I'm sick and tired. Okay, I like Travis Hunter. If I'm Travis Hunter, I don't know why I even stay with this team. I have no idea. I think he's super talented. I think Shadur is talented. But he talks way too much without any results to back it up. And he blames everybody else for everything. Look, we get it. Your offensive line and your defensive line are terrible. But then why is it that we as fans are expected to pretend like Colorado is a good team every single year? Why are we expected to think that way? And I don't think everything's on the offensive line. I mean, Shadur makes mistakes. It is what it is. Let's stop acting like this kid is perfect, because that's how the commentators always act. But it is what it is. Nebraska outplayed them, dominated them from beginning to end. I think Nebraska is going to be a team that's going to be fine. They'll have some good wins. They'll have some bad losses. It'll be what it be. Dylan Raiola will have moments of greatness, and he'll have moments where he's a freshman. That's how it works. But Nebraska's on a good start. Colorado's only going to win 4 games. It's what it is. So those are all the games I wanted to talk about from the teams who kind of got exposed for being frauds. I want to talk about another game for a second. I am a fan of this team, the Georgia Bulldogs. They faced Clemson in week 1. Let's just talk about that game real quick here. So after this game, there was a narrative that, Dabo and Clemson suck. They have no offense, this, that, and the other. And then what happened? Clemson faced Appalachian State and absolutely torched them, dropping a 60 burger. Had over 30 points by the end of the quarter. I think we should probably just acknowledge Georgia's defense might be the best in college football. Might be. They haven't let up a touchdown yet. They actually, technically speaking, they haven't let up a touchdown since the SEC championship game against Alabama, because Florida State didn't score one, and then Clemson didn't score one, and then obviously Tennessee Tech didn't score one. But this team, Georgia, last year, they struggled to stop the run, and they're not struggling to stop the run this year so far. Phil Maffa had 16 carries, so they gave him a lot of touches, but he only had 59 yards. Not even 4 yards a carry. And so, I mean, in Kate Klubnik, he was 18 for 29, 142 yards passing, no touchdowns, and an interception. I mean, we were locked down on defense. Absolutely locked down. You had a sack and a half from Jalen Walker. You had half a sack for Raylan Wilson. I mean, Jalen Walker had himself a game. I mean, he had 6 total tackles, which was the most on Georgia's defense. Peter Woods for Clemson, he had a good game, but it just wasn't enough. And it was close at halftime. It was only 6-0, but you kind of had the feeling that Georgia was never worried or never going to lose. And then they just turned it up after halftime. They made the proper adjustments, which is what I love to see. And they turned it up on them. London Humphreys. I also think it's ironic that the 2 touchdowns we scored passing wise were to transfers against Clemson. London Humphreys and Colby Young. Nate Frazier had himself a day. 11 carries for 83 yards. I think the kid's going to be a stud. ETN came back against Tennessee Tech. The guy looks like a stud. He was the second highest graded running back through PFF in week 2. Love to see that. And I think him, Robinson, Branson Robinson, and Nate Frazier, that's going to be great. And that doesn't even mention Roderick Robinson or Cash Jones, who had himself a good game against Clemson. It's an exciting time to be a UGA fan. This is an actual national championship contender, by the way. And I think Kentucky should be very worried about what's coming to town this weekend, especially after the showing that they put on against South Carolina. Those were all the games I planned to talk about. If anything else kind of comes to me, I'll talk about it. But I'm going to get into my week 3 game picks real quick. So first, we have a Friday night game. Arizona versus Kansas State. I think this game's very interesting. Kansas State had a little bit of a scare against Tulane. Arizona, I mean, Fifita and McMillan are something else. They really are, aren't they? This game's a hard one to pick. Those Friday games are weird. And the Big 12 is weird. I think I'm going to go with Kansas State, though, because this Arizona defense doesn't look very good. And I think the Kansas State defense will do just enough to allow their offense to score more points. And then we have the Saturday slate. We'll start with Alabama versus Wisconsin. An interesting one. You just saw Alabama struggle against South Florida for the second year in a row. And I don't be confused by the final score. They struggled. So what do I think? A big part of me wants to just go for it and pick Wisconsin because I don't think enough people are giving Wisconsin enough chance or credit with this game. I really don't. And something is just telling me that Wisconsin could do it. But I also know who we're talking about here. We're talking about Alabama. And as much as it would be so great for me to pick Wisconsin and then sit here after, let's say, Wisconsin wins, and as great it would feel to just gloat about that, I'm going to pick Alabama because I want to make the smart pick. LSU for South Carolina is for some reason the game day game, but whatever. I think LSU wins. I think South Carolina, their head is too big after the Kentucky win. Okay, we all remember the Old Dominion game. Okay, at least I do. And I think Kentucky's just bad. I think there's a reason. I mean, just like I told Florida State fans, there's a reason Georgia let Marvin Jones Jr. walk right out the door to you. Kentucky, I think you're starting to realize there might be a reason that Brock Vandagriff is with you and not us. Just going to put that out there because that was ugly on Saturday. So I'm going to pick LSU. I think they're just the better team. And I don't trust Beamer. I don't. Boston College versus Missouri. I feel like this should be the game day game. Just saying. I love this matchup. I'm going to pick Missouri. I don't think Boston College will be able to out physical Missouri like they did Florida State. They won't be able to run the ball as successfully. I think Missouri is going to try and force Castellanos to actually throw the ball. And because of that, I think Missouri is going to win just by being the more physical football team. I even think Missouri could blow them out. So not a lot of people are talking about Missouri, but you should be. Tulane versus Oklahoma. Oh, Tulane was so close to beating Kansas State, and Oklahoma was so close to losing to Houston. And Houston's terrible. That Oklahoma offensive line is trash. I mean, oh man. But that's exactly why I'm picking Oklahoma. Because you see, this is how these things work in life. You don't want to overcorrect. That's what you don't want to do. See, I'm teaching y'all something here. I'm guaranteeing an Oklahoma win to you right now, even though it doesn't make sense, because you don't want to overcorrect. Tulane looked great against Kansas State and could have beat them. Oklahoma looked bad against Houston and should have lost to Houston, but that is why Oklahoma will win. They're at home. Jackson Arnold has shown flashes, and that's how these things work. They force you to overcorrect and say, "Oh, Tulane's going to win. Pick the upset." But you just got to stick to your guns and pick the more talented team. Oklahoma will win this game. Now, this next one is probably the hardest game to pick. Maybe. Actually, no, yes, it is the hardest game to pick. Texas A&M versus Florida. So DJ Lagway's the starter. You have DJ Lagway versus Connor Wegman, and do you know what I think? I think Florida wins, and I'll tell you why. A, you're at home. And I know you were at home against Miami, but that Miami team was just too talented for you. That's just what it is. Graham Mertz got absolutely exposed. DJ Lagway, yes, it's an SEC start against a way harder opponent than Samford, but he got that Samford game. You know, he was able to kind of just test some things out, get the rust off, kind of just smooth into things. And now he gets a home game against Texas A&M, who I was very disappointed in after the Notre Dame game. Connor Wegman looked terrible. I mean, at this point, I think DJ is better than Connor Wegman based off what I saw. So I'm going to pick Florida to win, which will then, by the way, cause a massive overreaction by the Florida fans. Just to let you know, I'm already planning to talk about the Florida fan overreaction on next Tuesday. Just letting you know. Oregon versus Oregon State. I think this is a typical college football trap that I don't want you to fall into. There are times where things are true, and there are times when it's trying to trick you. Oregon has had 2 struggle wins. This is true against Idaho and Boise State. So you then force yourself and cause yourself to think, oh, well, now they're facing an Oregon State team who's 2-0, who looks solid. And then you think yourself, I think I'm going to pick Oregon State to win. That is the trap that you fall in. I think Oregon wins. I think they win. I don't care if it's by 3. I don't care if it's by 21. Oregon's going to win. I think they might just be a team this year who just wins a ton of close games. That just might be how they do it. But I'm going to pick Oregon, and I'm confident in that pick. Colorado versus Colorado State. Oh, man. I'm trying so hard not to fall into the trap. I'm trying so hard not to look at this game and compare it to last year and now say, okay, now Colorado State's at home, so Colorado State will win. I'm trying so hard not to fall into that trap, and I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna pick Colorado because at the end of the day, they had a chance to make that Nebraska game a game, and they just didn't take advantage of it. But against a team like Colorado State, their offensive line and defensive line will hold up enough to allow them to score enough points to win. Georgia versus Kentucky. I thought this game could be an interesting one a week ago until Kentucky decided to let South Carolina absolutely annihilate them. And now I'm convinced Georgia might have a third game in a row where the team they're facing doesn't score a touchdown. So I'm going to go Georgia in this game. Score, I'll give a score prediction since it's my team. Let's see. I'm going to go Georgia 45-6. How about that? 45-6. And then the last game, a little bit of an interesting one that I really wanted to add on here because I wanted to talk about one of these teams. Indiana versus UCLA. I like this Indiana team. I think they're very underrated. I think they beat UCLA. I think UCLA sucks. And that's all I really wanted to say about that, but I'm picking Indiana. I did also want to mention that there were two teams. Let me check real quick if I had them in dark horse or surprising for my previews. Let's see. So one of them I had as most surprising, and the other also. So I had both of them in most surprising, and I think those have hit home runs for the Ace. Ironically, the ACC. My ACC preview, I said Syracuse would be the most surprising team. Tell me when I'm telling lies. I mean, Kyle McCord is out here throwing daggers, out here throwing darts all over Georgia Tech. I told y'all Georgia Tech would be overrated and people would overreact to the win over Florida State. Yeah, Georgia Tech's not that good. And Syracuse just exposed them. And are we sure that Ohio State was right about Kyle McCord? I think Kyle McCord shouldn't have stayed at Ohio State because I think maybe the moment and the pressure and all that was maybe just a little too much. Maybe the scheme just wasn't right for him. But man, he is at Syracuse, and I knew it was going to be a better fit, and it has turned out that way 100%. I told y'all Fran Brown would be great for that program, and he is. His post-game presser where he just talked his talk to Georgia Tech and that head coach, Key. Oh, I loved it. Oh, I loved it. And then my Big Ten most surprising team. Anyone want to know who that was? Michigan State. And I told you when I picked this game, Michigan State versus Maryland. I told you Michigan State would win. I said, do not worry about the how they only beat Florida Atlantic 16-10. Don't worry. Do not worry. They were going to beat Maryland. I knew they were going to beat Maryland because I liked what I saw from Aiden Childs. Yes, at times he makes stupid decisions and he's a little too much of a gunslinger. But I'll tell you what, when it works, it works. And this team is not talented enough to go and contend with an Ohio State, with a Penn State. Well, then again, I thought Bowling Green wouldn't contend with a Penn State, but you get my point, with an Oregon. But this team will be annoying to play if Aiden Childs is playing like he's playing. And so I love that those two picks, because I felt good about those two picks, and I wanted those two picks to pan out because I felt so good about it, and it has worked out, and I feel great about that at least. And I'm curious, I'm going to look real quick. How many of these predictions I made are coming true? Most disappointing, Michigan. I mean, come on. You saw what I saw on Saturday. So That might hit as well. Most disappointing, Miami. Yikes. That probably won't hit the way I want it to. The Big 12, most surprising. Hey, Iowa State, I said would be the most surprising. They went out, they beat Iowa. They're on a roll here. I'm a little worried about Utah and the whole Cam Rising. He's continuing to get injured. We'll see how that pans out. Worst team, Cincinnati. I mean, they choked, absolutely choked against Pitt. And in the pick'ems I have with a couple of family members, I picked Pitt. So I was very happy that Cincinnati decided to choke. In the same way, by the way, that Arkansas, this just reminded me of this game, that Arkansas decided to just literally just hand the game to Oklahoma State. They just handed it to them. And I picked Oklahoma State, so it's fine. But they just handed it to them. I was like, what am I watching? And I'll tell you what has shocked me the most. Talon Green, the quarterback for Arkansas, actually looks really good. He looks really good. And then the second half happened, and Arkansas made stupid mistakes with turnovers, with penalties, and it just killed them. And they let Oklahoma State come back in the game. And I mean, at that point, there was no stopping what was going to happen. Oh man, that was a lot of talking. I talked really fast and really passionate. But I'll be back with another episode on Friday. I will be probably just talking about any news that there is. I'll be talking about. I don't think there's any games Thursday night, but I might preview Arizona, Kansas State a little bit more since that's a Friday game. Preview some other games happening on Saturday. Maybe still do a little bit more review of some past games that we've had. But I'm happy to be back from vacation. We're here. We're rolling 2 episodes a week. It's going to continue. We're going to keep chugging along. And I'm excited to be here in this college football season. NFL has started as well. That was fun to watch this weekend. My Pittsburgh Steelers 1-0, baby. And we keep rolling. All right. Thank you for listening. Hit subscribe if you want to hit subscribe. And I will see you guys on Friday.